Is there a secret formula to being a good windsurfer? To progressing from your start beginnery moves to becoming an intermediate and moving forward to being an advanced windsurfer? I'm here to tell you there is a secret formula. However, you already know it. The things you've learned at your beginner level when you first started to windsurf still apply. We just need to draw them back out of our heads, back into our windsurfing, and remind ourselves how important those basic skills that you learn within the first few hours, the first few minutes of windsurfing are as you improve. So for some of you joining me today, you may have learned to windsurf a few hours ago, a few weeks ago, maybe so already this summer. Some of you maybe you learned to windsurf 10, 20 or even a number of years ago. The same things that you learned whenever it was you learned still apply now in this 5-point formula, which is used by coaches and instructors all over the place, as well as students, as a self-diagnosing tool of what's gone wrong through my maneuvers or through my getting going or use of the harness. Everything can be broken down into this 5-point formula, the elements of your windsurfing, or the fast forward formula as it's known. So the first and most important one, whatever we're doing, is our vision. We need to be looking where you want to go. Vision will maintain your sailing line. It's so easy to get distracted and start looking at our harness or our feet, and instantly we start to lose balance. Generally cruising along, we're trying to look up towards the wind, looking for gusts, and we're looking forwards across the wind for a little bit of chop so we know what's coming. 90% of the time, let's be honest, windsurfing, we're trying to get back upwind. So our head, our shoulders, our hips, and our front foot should be looking up towards the wind. And this is a key change of position from a position you might be in, standing a lot squarer, something like this, to turning towards the wind and then sailing cleanly in that direction. So your vision maintains your sailing line. Look where you want to go. Trim, the trim of the board, and how we keep the board flat. As a beginner, we're taught that the center line running straight through the middle of the board is the most balancy point on the board. And whether we're tacking or jibing or moving around, we keep our feet over that center line to maintain balance. As you progress, you realize that to keep the board flat, when you start speeding up and you start using windier conditions, our feet have to move back and out towards the foot straps in order to keep the board flat and stable. As you speed up more, getting back into the foot straps is the way you keep the board flat and stable. And this applies the same when you're coming through your tacks or your jibes or you're getting the board planing. If the trim is upset, the board is all over the place, it's not fast and it's not stable. So trim, keep the board flat to keep it stable and ultimately keeping it fast. Counterbalance forms our framework, opposing the forces of the rig. If the rig goes forwards and towards the wind, as if I was entering a jibe, my body has to come back and down to counteract that. If the rig goes out wide and I turn towards the wind, I have to go in the other direction. The simple logic of if I go forwards and the rig goes forwards, you're probably going to catapult, should clarify that. This can be used in all of your manoeuvres, opposing the forces of the rig and basically keeping your front arm straight. As soon as I pull the rig towards me, I can't counterbalance anything and I start to lose control. Tacking and jibing, exactly the same. Keep the rig away from you throughout. The same thing applies really if you're going for the foot straps. I'm trying to get back and out towards the foot straps on the board. If the rig comes back with me, the rig's at the back, my body's at the back, I'll squeal up into the wind and stop. So to get into the front foot strap, even at a slow pace, the rig has to go forwards towards the wind so that I can get back and into that front strap. Power. Now, as a beginner, we learned that power gets us moving and we pull in or out with the back hand to give or release power. As you progress, there's three things we're going to do with the sail to create power, or more importantly, to channel the power from the rig down into the board and make us accelerate. Now, sure, the rig has to come in just a little bit. I do that not just by pulling with my back arm, but more importantly by pushing through my front one, keeping the rig counterbalanced as I power up. The rig needs to come down at the same time. Dropping my elbows ever so slightly will encourage the power to go down the mast and into the board. And the rig needs to come back ever so slightly. Now it may go towards the wind to stop me just skewing into the wind, but if the mast is vertical or even slightly forwards, power then has to take a zigzag route to finally get to the board. So the power comes in, back and down, and that's how I start to accelerate and get more power channeled into the board. In, back and down, in, back and down. Finally, my stance, how I use my body. And if you've got the others correct, quite often the stance is going pretty well anyway. I can change between a very straight stance in the lighter winds, or, as if on cue, gust has hit me, I might drop down a little bit lower into a super 7, created through my front arm and my body, to control that extra bit of wind, or to power up by dropping down low, allows me to use that power correctly. And then I might revert back to more of a standard shape, a 7 just here, just for cruising around. Into the jibe. Vision, looking through the jibe, looking where I want to go. The board's remaining flat throughout, or slightly carved on the inside rail. It stays that way as I do the foot change. And as I come to the rig flip, the vision and the counterbalance will be key. Looking forwards for my exit, counterbalancing the rig. As the rig goes back and down, my body comes up and forwards. As the rig comes forwards, my body then drops back once again to re-engage the power. Now, when it comes to fault analyzing yourself, use this formula in order to figure out what's going on. I've fallen in on a tack. How was my vision? Was I looking where I want to go? Or did I get stuck facing the wind and trying to think about where my hands should be going and staring at my feet? Maybe I slowed down coming through a jibe. Okay, how was my trim? Was the board fairly flat or was I carving very hard? Did I make the hairpin Did I make a hairpin turn, which would have slowed me down a lot? Or did I open the turn out and make the jibe nice and big, which would have been easier to keep the board flat? As it comes to maybe a rig flip and a jibe, I mentioned just there that the rig goes around the outside and the rig floats down towards the back before coming up and forwards. Did I counterbalance throughout that, or did I chase the rig as quickly as I could, trying to get on the new boom side, and end up falling off the back? Why can't I get planing? I've got the power, but I'm not channeling the power down into the board. What have I done wrong? Is the mast too upright? Does the mast need to come back just a little bit? Have I sheeted in? Or am I not pulling down through the boom? Am I constantly getting catapulted? What's the problem here? Could it be my stance? Am I in too much of a straight 7 when actually I should be dropping down that bit lower like I am now into a bit more of a super 7 position? Back to the beginning, this stuff is learnt as a beginner. As a beginner, you learn to pick a goal point across the wind and look at your goal point and sail towards it. As a beginner, we learn about standing on the center line. And then as you get faster, we move further back and further out on the board. As a beginner, we learn that extending our arms allows you to counterbalance the force and the weight of the sail. We learn that pulling in with the sail powers us up a little bit. And now we're learning that pulling down and back with the sail will help to channel that power forwards. And finally, as a beginner, you learn how to stand on the board. And what I hope has been encouraged to you as a beginner windsurfer is that there's not one sailing position and we don't stand there going, this is my stance. We adapt and we change and we move our stance depending on what's going on. So, the final recap. And I want you to take this into your manoeuvres and make sure you follow some other videos where in the tack, for example, I'm talking a lot about using our vision into the wind or pushing off the back foot and trimming the board towards the wind, or counterbalancing throughout the transition. The final recap and the key things to remember then. Vision maintains your sailing line, so look where you want to go. Your head, shoulders, hips, and your feet, looking usually towards the wind. Trim. Maintain a flat, stable board, which will allow you to be fast, or work your way through your manoeuvres. Counterbalance is opposing the rig. Wherever the rig goes, I have to go in the other direction. Power, and how we channel that power in the rig, down and into the board. We pull the sail in a bit, we pull the sail down, and we let the sail come slightly back. And finally, stance and how we use our body, how we move and how we adapt depending on what we're trying to do. The straight 7, a very straight, stiffened up body, for the lighter winds, for efficient upwind sailing, or quite possibly maintaining us through a lull, or the dropping down low position to control stronger winds, to accelerate, to exit tacks, to enter and exit our jibes, dropping down low. Vision, trim, balance, power, and stance. Make sure you follow the other videos I've already uploaded and check out the other playlists that are around the place as well for getting in your foot straps, using our harness, setting our harnesses, jibing, tacking, and my favorite one so far I think is the body drag one. If you can already blast along in the foot straps and you can water start, it's time for a body drag, my favorite old school move. So thank you for joining me here today. I hope the explanation I've done is clear enough and simple enough that you can take on board what you already know from being a beginner windsurfer to being an intermediate or an advanced windsurfer, and the extra clips I've thrown in along the way clarify what I'm talking about here.